and welcome back to Amadeo Dispatched with Tasia. And I have talked Brett into doing a second episode. We are so excited that you're here because that means that you had stuck out the first episode and are joining us for the second. It is a big day today. We had our pilot episode published yesterday on YouTube, and our church leadership watched it, and we got their approval for the green light to go. And so we are headed into the right direction, I believe, with God. So if this is your first time joining us, again, welcome. We're glad that you're here. Want to apologize with it being just our second episode. We're kind of wonky. It's late at night. We're both in our pajamas. I have no makeup on. I know that the video is probably not the best. I have no makeup on. You can probably tell. And the sound is not the greatest because I'm recording it on a laptop. But as we go through and as this progresses, I promise that we'll get the kinks worked out. But what we're here to do is just to deliver God's message. And God's message, he doesn't care. Moses stuttered. So was it Moses? Yes, it was Moses that stuttered. We are currently in a series, 4 parts. Last night was part 1. Yesterday, last episode was part 1. Tonight is part 2. We're doing the Upside Down Kingdom. And last episode, we talked about how to become a leader. You must first become a servant. So tonight, this episode, we are going to talk about how to truly find life, you must die to self. And I just have to confess, this is something that is just an ongoing process with me. I think it is with everybody, but our key point that we're going to talk about tonight is loving others. Loving others really from hard places. And it's really glorious to think that you can love on certain people. You can love on your family members. You can love on crazy Uncle Joe. You can love on people in your church. But there's some people that's really hard to love. So we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. Brett's going to open us up. We're going to be in the book of Matthew 16:24.
Then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me.
While I was folding laundry today was another algebra day. It wasn't a very good day.
We're never going to pass algebra.
He's struggling with this too. I've asked him 2 questions and neither one of them. Well, the first one you got right, didn't you? The second one is not. It didn't go nearly as well. Anyway, I took a break and I was folding laundry and I was really thinking about the podcast and the message that I wanted to send out today. And the Holy Spirit talked to me and reminded me of something that I did a couple of weeks ago that probably I know didn't sit so well with others. I was on Facebook. There was a gentleman that had posted about a group in Tennessee that is starting a after school program, and their sponsor or the people that are running it is the Church of Satan. And I want to preface this by saying that I do not support the Church of Satan. I'm not trying to encourage that at all. But what I want to bring to the table is that we have a tendency of when we see something like that, a lot of times it's shock factor. And we are so easy to turn it off.
Which is what they're counting on.
Yeah. And we forget that these are people. It's an organization, don't get me wrong, but they're people. And when we think about Jesus and we think about the people that he hung out with, wasn't the kings and the queens and he hang out with the high priests and whatnot, but his favorite people were the ones that were struggling and the low lives. And what were you talking about earlier? That it was probably the prostitutes.
The tax collectors and the prostitutes and the sinners like that. I mean, there's numerous references in the Bible about people questioning about why are you sitting with the tax collectors? They're the cheats. They're the ones who are, why are you messing with her because she's a prostitute? The lady, the woman at the well. I mean, perfect example. Been married 5 times. So um, that's part of our problem, I think, as a church, is the fact that everybody wants to hang out with the saved folks, which is great. I like potluck as much as everyone else, but um, that kind of defeats our purpose to be sent out uh, and do God's work. Requires us to be with the sinners and not with our best friend who's invited us over for Sunday lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're not saved, of course you want to deal with that. But
And it's easy to me to read about the woman at the well, and I have so many feelings and such deep emotion for her. I connect with her so well. But in our time, what does the tax collectors and the prostitutes look like? The hard ones for me to love are the ones that are on death row, the murderers, the adulterers,
pedophiles,
pedophiles, Satanists. And I'm not saying that we need to invite these people over for Sunday brunch, but what is loving them looking like? Is it desensitizing? Is it shutting it away and saying, okay, I don't agree with that. I don't believe in it. So I'm just going to scroll past, or I'm going to change the channel, or I'm going to tune out this conversation? Or is it something that God may be approaching you to look at things differently? I probably have a different perspective because of my job. When I took an oath to be a paramedic, I have to treat everybody. I have to treat the child molesters. I have to treat the prostitutes. I have to treat the drug addicts. I have to treat the tax collectors. So that something was instilled in me as they're still human. So as humans, how are we loving other humans?
to make it more personal than that, they're still God's children.
Yeah.
Um, and you think about, how can all that happen? It's a lostness. It's a we discussed earlier about once they get to prison, and that's a lot of your prison ministries come in on that. And you think, oh well, okay, they're going to church and they're learning. To tell you the truth, I've worked a little bit of prison ministry, not a whole lot. Most of the time, it's they get out of their cell for an hour, and so you may not ever reach that person, and there's really nothing you can do about it. But it's not because the opportunity hasn't been presented to them. It's the fact that, I mean, if you're going and you're giving them the option of the free will, you've fulfilled what God's asked of you to do. You can't make them accept Jesus as their Savior. You can't uh, crank their arm around and you're going to accept Jesus or we're going to put you in solitary. Most of the time, they're there for the cookies and the hour out of their time.
Yeah.
But if you're calling your servitude is prison ministry, then I've got a sister-in-law that's been doing it for 20 years and she's seen the results. And if you can get one, I mean,
Who's this?
Nancy.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And so she's been dealing with prison ministry for years and years. And, I'm
Nancy
sure that it's a disappointing calling. I mean, if you're getting one out of 100, but that's the story of the sheep, you left the 99 to go get the one. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Another, well, I want to say this too before we jump onto another topic. I don't want to say that loving these people, that means that they don't have to, that they get out of prison and they don't have to pay their dues to society. That's not it either. Because I know forgiveness and loving God goes hand in hand, but we can meet people in hard places and not we can meet people in hard places and still expect them to pay repercussions. God gives us consequences. God gives us discipline, and there's consequences to our actions. But what I'm saying with loving people from hard places, this group that I was talking about earlier about the Satanist church, the Satanists, a lot of times the research that I've had to do for school. We've had to look up like different religious entities, different cultures. I've did some research on serial killers and cults and all kinds of things for various different classes that I've been in. But this one specifically about the Church of Satan, I found out that a lot of people that join the Church of Satan, they just join because they don't have anything else to join. They've either been hurt, really hurt by somebody, or been hurt by religion, been hurt by somebody in the church, been hurt by the church in some way. And so they're looking for that community. And so if we say, oh, you're Church of Satan, you're
They're,
Satanists.
they're looking for the same fellowship we do when we go to church on Sundays.
Yeah.
And if they've been bitten in church, if they've had a problem, it doesn't take much to give someone an excuse not to go back to church. Oh, well, I didn't like the way they looked at me that day. So I'm just not going to go back.
Yeah.
And it's a little easier to be accepted, I would imagine. And so people want fellowship, whether it be in a normal church, I'm assuming normal church as we go to, or in another form or fashion. I mean, that's
Well,
people are designed to want the fellowship.
Research I did, there's not even really a Church of Satan. There's a website, but there's not like a building standing somewhere where these people go. It's just online. It's a name that they can attach themselves to, looking for love, looking for acceptance, looking for what Christ gives, but for whatever cause or whatever reason, they're not accepting of Christ. And the only way that we're going to be able to love on these people is through Christ. If you think about it, you think about the ones that are trying to rehab, not even just like AA or NA, but sex offenders. That's not something that I could do. That's not something I'm equipped for, but I'm sure that the people that work with these men and women are going through God. And that's really the only way that you can love somebody from a hard place is through God. And the point that I was going to bring up a while ago before, or that I started to bring up, was about foster care. And on most things, I just started school back. And so a lot of my online classes, I have to do introductions. And so I'll put 100 things in there because I've got all my fingers in these different pots. And I'll talk about online ministry, I'll talk about church, I'll talk about being a paramedic, being an instructor, doing all of these things. And then I'll just kind of tuck in there, I'll talk about our outdoor group too, that we cook and do things for. But I'll tuck in there, oh yeah, by the way, we do foster care. And I get more people that say, hey, that's fantastic that you do foster care. That's something that I really want to do. That's something that I think would be interesting. And I would really feel like that I'm giving to my community or giving back to somebody. And let me tell you, loving kids from hard places is hard. And we have that experience behind us. And we have a heart for that. And that was something that was instilled in us, I think, from James Barham and Maggie Peeler. We learned so much from them. And they probably, I hope they smile when they hear about that, because there was a lot of eye rolling that we did when we sat in both of their offices. What we did learn from them and what we do remember, we've really taken to heart. And
so when we were in our home in Paragould, we had 7 kids, and probably 5 of them they were hard to love. They were really hard to love. Because you're new set of parents coming into 7 kids that already existed. And first thing they thought of was they were going to rule the roost, and we had to put down some pretty hard rules. And so that transition period, Here's the same way. We just got our first foster here in this home 4 months ago, 5 months ago. And there's a good month there that it's hard. It's hard to live with a new kid. And then around Christmas, we got our second one, and that was impossible. We actually had to find uh, better care for him. He was needing more care than we could give him. And so when you're learning to deal with new people, new kids, new foster parents, it's you get in some tough situations with these kids. And you get one that's up in his teens, they don't care. They're not gonna even like you back, much less love you back.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that reminds me of the conversation that we were having earlier on the phone. I don't want to mention names because I don't want them to feel uncomfortable anyway, but they were sharing their foster care experience where they had invited a young person into their home, and by the end of their journey, before their paths parted, the mother apologized and said, I don't know if I did something to offend you or you had an expectation, but we really wanted you to have a family. And that child, who was, I believe, 18, said, I wasn't looking for a family. I was just wanting to come be closer to my friends. And my heart grieves for that, because I know how that feels. I know how you can feel used, and you want to give everything. You try to give everything to this person, and they don't want to accept it. They want what they want, and that's it. And these kids from hard places, it's hard to be grateful when you've never had those things. And there is a sense of entitlement when it comes to foster kids.
Group homes are horrible. I mean, they're not horrible. I'm not saying it's a terrible thing. We worked in the group home setting for 2 years, and there was tough times. Once you got in the routine and got everything going, there's money provided to take care of these kids, and it's not an ideal setting. It's not. It's horrible. Much rather these kids be with their families, but they were removed from their families for a reason. Um, and so,
Loving the parents of these
definitely.
children are hard too.
But there are opportunities for children if they will take them.
Yeah.
And one of the stipulations in the state of Arkansas, if you age out of the program, they'll pay a full ride college tuition. Um, and 1 in 10 actually take them up on that.
Yeah.
So and I mean, I've got a 30-year-old son, and sometimes you want to smack them in the head and say, pay attention and listen to me. But you can't. And I'm not condoning smacking them in the head. I look back upon my life, and if it was offered to me, I probably would have gave it up too. But at the age of 18, someone's been in the system 10 years, and they just want out. They want out. They want away. They don't care. They want to go find their parents. They want to find their siblings. Um, and it's hard to deal with an unappreciative person, no matter what age they are.
By the end of our last placement journey with us, where our paths had um, started to part, I actually stood in the living room with him, and I said his name, and I said, this just really isn't working out, is it? And he said, yeah, it is. And I said, no, you're not willing. You're not doing anything that we ask of you. You're not being receptive to anything that we say to you. And this is just not working out. And this is after like a month of destroying everything. And it's not, I don't think that it was intentional. He was so destructive because he was rough, because he hadn't been taught any different. He wasn't taught to treat things gently, or to use things, to respect other people's property and personal spaces. So I grieved. It was really difficult. Probably by about week 2.5, it was like very obvious that this wasn't going to work out. But it was right at Christmas time, and we were wanting it to make it work. He was a likable kid. We really wanted to like him, but the decision, when it finally came down to it, I had a girlfriend who also works in foster care. She works with the state, And she had a conversation with this young gentleman in church, and she had asked how it was going, and he just kind of shrugged his shoulders, and she pretty much just pointed out, you're making some really bad choices. And he completely closed off from her and wouldn't talk after that. So during my grieving process, she stepped in and just matter of factly said to me that it takes two. It takes two to make it work. And I want to share that with the individual, that the conversation that we had on the phone earlier today about this is, I know you were laughing about it, but I know my heart with my kids that I long for, that are long gone from our care, is that it takes two. And if they don't want to make it work, it's not going to work. And it's not something that you've did on your part, but it's just that person from that hard place, if they're not willing to accept love, it won't
Can't
work.
make them. It was just in best interest for everyone that we found the second one a better place, whether it be therapeutic or whether it be what. It's we were doing him no service here,
Yeah.
whereas the one we've got now, there is a great possibility this kid can grow up and be whatever. But and I didn't appreciate the first one until I got the second. And then it was like, oh, okay, all right. But
Yep.
hopefully this young gentleman is in a place now that can give him the attention that he needs, because we've got to focus back on the one that we had. But it was truly a very hard to love type situation. So once again, you can't make them. So
Yeah. So who's the person in your life that's hard to love? Where can you die to yourself and love somebody a little more, a little harder?
or not like them a little less.
So there's a shirt that's going around that says Jesus loves you and I'm trying. I need that shirt. So any last comments?
No,
Any last thoughts?
very rarely. It's not Tuesdays, and Tuesdays are my day to think. So
Thank you again for joining us. We hope that maybe you get a little bit from it. If you don't, maybe you can share it with somebody that will. But please hit like and follow, and we hope to see you in our upcoming episodes.